Hello and welcome to The Green Stream, a podcast brought to you by Sustainable Business Network Detroit, a network of partnerships between Southeast Michigan stakeholders, innovators, and changemakers. Each partner is on a mission to advance and amplify sustainable business practices, and we're here to learn from, share, and help activate a sustainable way forward for Greater Detroit. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a review and join the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And head over to our website, sbn-detroit.org. Now, let's listen in to our conversation with today's sustainability leaders.
Well, hello and welcome to the Green Stream. I'm Terry Barclay, the President and CEO of Inforum and the Chair of the Sustainable Business Network of Detroit. SBND is focused on mobilizing businesses of all sizes in Southeast Michigan, with Detroit at its epicenter, to become a global leader and a community that's a global leader in sustainability. And I am just delighted that we have with us today on the Green Stream Lisa Wozniak, who's Executive Director of the Michigan League of Conservation Voters. Lisa, you have an incredible background. Could you start by just telling us a little bit about you and how you got into this role, and then tell us some more about the League?
Sure. Terry, thank you so much for having me on as a guest, and I'm delighted to be here. My journey is very circuitous. I never imagined that I would be leading an organization that actually was focused on environmental protection and making sure that our state is a leader in sustainability and clean energy and tackling the climate crisis. But here I am. I actually have a background that is in education, social work, and ended up doing some work with some amazing leaders early in my career, including a woman named Lana Pollock, who served in the Michigan Senate for 12 years. And she went on to be an Obama appointee, overseeing all the international boundary waters between the US and Canada. She's done some amazing things, and she's been a real inspiration to me. So I have found myself over the last 18 years leading this organization. When I stepped into it, there were two of us, and we were buried inside a little tiny office in the National Wildlife Federation's offices in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And over the last 18 years, we've grown to be over 40 people. And I think the issues that confront us have gotten increasingly challenging. So we need to be a team that actually can tackle all of them. And we work to protect the air, land, and water in communities all across Michigan, activating residents and voters to elect and hold accountable public officials who fight for an environment that sustains the health and well-being of all of us. And that takes form in many different ways. We do a lot of education of citizens, of residents, of lawmakers, of policymakers. People who get elected to office often are elected on one issue, and it might not be these issues at all. So really leaning in to help them understand things, help the media understand the issues, which are very complex. And we engage people all over the state because really these issues matter immensely. And I know we'll get into some of what's happened over the last couple of years in Michigan, but one of the things that the governor spoke about early in her tenure was working on kitchen table issues. And we really believe that having clean, safe drinking water that's affordable, that you feel safe to give to your children, is a kitchen table issue. And that electric rates that you can afford is a kitchen table issue. And creating jobs in this new economy is a kitchen table issue. So these are some of the areas in which we work. And I'm really proud to have been part of the organization for all these years.
Yeah. Well, you certainly, congratulations on your growth and on your increasing impact and your success. And those of us who had the chance to know Lana know what a force of nature you were able to learn from. I mean, she's just amazing. So talk to us. Here we are. There are so many issues that we could possibly talk about today. But what is the plan of action to advocate for climate action at the local, state, and federal levels? What does that look like? And how do you go about engaging with elected officials and partners to build that coalition of voices that is calling for climate action?
It's a great question. And I will tell you that we are celebrating our 25th anniversary this year.
Ah.
So we are 25 years into doing this work that, again, is becoming increasingly important in the state of Michigan. And we have, in the very recent rearview mirror, a really bold move that the state of Michigan has made. So I'm getting to answer your question about engagement with lawmakers. The state passed in 2023 the boldest clean energy and climate legislation in the state's history. And that happened because, again, we leaned into the fact that these issues are kitchen table issues. And as the governor and legislature spoke to the state of Michigan and said they'd be working on these issues, we made sure that this is the framing that took place around climate and clean energy. And we engaged with them in a very active and consistent and concise way to make that happen. We knocked on doors with lawmakers. We spent time in their offices educating them about how important this was. We brought people from their communities to their meetings. We, in this world of elections, we also did things like raise money, and made sure it was there for them. We worked with small businesses and large businesses in the clean energy and technology communities. And it's one of the key issues that was really very controversial, I think, in this last round was who gets to decide where wind and solar infrastructure is put in our state. And the power of a local farmer being able to decide that he or she wants to save the family farm, because these are exactly examples that have come up through the installation of a solar farm, should be his or her choice. And so some of the legislation that was passed actually has a wonderful sort of coming together of retaining some local control, but then also offering the Michigan Public Service Commission the right to get involved and help to site more and more of these renewable farms, whether wind or solar. And it's helping communities all over the state. And so our engagement is multifaceted. We think that partnerships and trustworthy, authentic relationships with the lawmakers it's very, very important, and bringing a multitude of voices to the table so that this can't be pigeonholed into, it's only tree huggers that care about environmental issues. No, it's clean energy businesses, it's technology, industry, it's farmers, it's women, raising their children and wanting to make sure that they have a clean energy future, right? So all of those things came into play in this last year, and they certainly remain in play as we move forward.
It's funny. We've ended up talking about farming on several of these podcasts, and you're absolutely. It's fascinating to hear you raise that, and I would say that one of the fears that I often hear is that sustainability is something that's going to be done to me. So that whole point that you're making about the importance of choice and people being at the center of that is a kitchen table issue. I mean, I think that that's something people are really concerned about.
That's right. And things that are hitting people in their own backyards. I mean, one of the things that we've been really challenged by in the state of Michigan is that we haven't invested in our grid in the way that we can and should, and it's true, frankly, all over the country. And our two major utilities, who are in good faith making moves to really transform their businesses to a clean energy future, also are struggling with some of the extreme weather that we've had. The power outages that we've had in our state have been very, very significant, and impact families in some very terrible ways. If you have medicine in your refrigerator and your refrigerator's out for 5 days and you can't afford to replace that medicine, that's a problem. And so between that and the increasing rates that people are paying for their energy, people are more aware of, I would say, climate and energy issues than they have been in the past. Between the extreme weather, which is more and more consistent and hitting our states with floods and big winds, and then also how the power outages are impacting them and the rates that they're paying, they're concerned, and they're leaning into this issue.
Yeah. So, Lisa, could you talk a little bit more about the Clean Energy and Jobs Act? I think that there's a lot of misconception out there about what it is and what it isn't.
Sure.
We've heard that it will require Michigan's energy to come 100% from clean energy sources by 2040, and that sounds a little bit scary. So can you talk about what it really is and what it really means?
Sure. And in fact, just recently, another federal grant was actually given to the state of Michigan for $129 million to actually really increase the speed around some of this build out, right? So that's the state is being very opportunistic when it comes to federal dollars to ensure that the monies are there to help with this transformation. So the Clean Energy and Jobs Act is indeed a piece of legislation, a package of laws that actually pushes us towards 100% clean energy by 2040. You're absolutely right. It builds out renewable energy sources like wind and solar faster than most states in the country. We're now in the top 5 states in the country tackling this and moving forward. And we are the strongest in the Midwest. And our intent is reaching 50% of Michigan's energy in the clean energy sector by 2030, and moving as quickly as possible to clean up our air and our water all across the state. And very importantly, in Black and Brown communities where there's been a disproportionate impact from industry and from the energy sector over many, many years. The other thing that's included in this package, which is, I think, very important to point out, and I think people miss this, is that it adds teeth to the Michigan Public Service Commission to hold accountable our 2 utility companies, to make making us the most progressive in the country when it comes to measuring environmental justice and health safety impacts. And it also enacts the highest labor standards of any climate package passed in the country. This is really important. It creates 160,000 good paying jobs in the clean energy sector. And it includes prevailing wage, which I know our state is very, very concerned about. Project labor agreements, and explicit hiring and training for low income communities, which a number of businesses have popped up, really focused on how do we actually train up our communities so we're ready for this clean energy revolution, right? Our evolution. And all of this is part of the Clean Energy and Jobs Act, which it makes it one of the most comprehensive packages that we've seen in the country.
Very exciting, and it sounds like we have a lot of work to do. So,
Indeed.
do you have any advice for businesses that want to learn more or want to get engaged?
Well, I think that one of the most important pieces of this puzzle, in addition to the state action that took place here in Michigan, was the Biden-Harris and congressional move in the Inflation Reduction Act, the largest action taken at the federal level to tackle climate and move us forward in the clean energy sector. And much of that includes a deep dive and a deep investment in the business community, in making funds available for our battery companies, for our clean tech companies. And I know that there are a number of companies right here in Michigan, one, which is a battery company right here in Michigan, has really done a lot to access the dollars that are available to help move their company forward. And I would urge any companies that are interested in this to both tap into the state and the federal information on the Clean Energy and Jobs Act and on the Inflation Reduction Act. There is a lot there that can help businesses move forward.
So speaking of the Inflation Reduction Act, I think, wasn't the league involved in launching Energy Savings Now? Is that a program that you were involved with?
We were, and we just closed out the final portion of this. So thank you for asking this question. The Energy Savings Now program was a multifaceted program, a really exciting one. It was a campaign to do large-scale community engagement around the benefits available through the Inflation Reduction Act. And we partnered with municipalities because we thought that was very, very important. Some of the municipalities have done some amazing things at the local level, to tackle clean energy and climate. So we work specifically in Oakland County and in Lansing and the Ann Arbor areas where there have been big steps taken forward. And we spent but most of the summer basically knocking on doors in those communities and educating Michiganders about the federal funding available through the Inflation Reduction Act. And these are benefits that people really don't know much about, things that they can do to upgrade their homes to make them more energy efficient, which saves them money, obviously, and reducing pollution to our air and water. Clean energy audits are actually available through the City of Ann Arbor's commitment. So we were able to combine the conversation about the federal opportunities with the local ones. And people were really, I think, astonished and excited. They might have had these things on their wish list for a while, but weren't moving forward with them. And I'll just say finally that we knocked on over 100,000 doors in those three areas. I think we've transformed people's lives because now they know they can actually move forward with some of these things. And even though our program is over, we're still educating people by encouraging people to go to our landing page on this, which is michiganlcb.org/energy-savings. And they can tap into the Rewiring America's Savings Calculator there. And they can figure out right from that calculator all the things that they're able to take advantage on based on their income. So the last thing I'll say is that we're collecting stories about all of this. So as we've been talking to people at the doors, we've been collecting stories about what they have done or are going to do in terms of actually taking advantage of the funding and opportunities out there. And we've launched a storytelling page where we can actually share these stories with people. Many of them are in video form. And so if you go to that same link and just add stories to it, you can find all those stories there, and we'll keep adding to that story bank.
That's really great to know, because you know how these things are. There's so much information coming at us, and you tend not to pay attention to it until it's the moment where you need that information. And so I'm glad to hear that you have some tools that are available to people who may be in the second wave of awareness about
that's right.
About what's available. So thank you for doing that. So gosh, Lisa, with your background and with the incredible impact that you've had over the years, I am just kind of curious about your perspective on what you think some of the biggest sustainability challenges are that we face in Southeast Michigan.
Yeah. This is not the roses and sunshine part of the conversation.
Well, we can end with what you think some of the greatest successes have been. So we'll get to the roses.
And the opportunities. I think there are some amazing opportunities in front of us as well. Yeah. I would say in the energy pieces of the puzzle, and then I would like to talk about water too, because water basically defines the state. We hold up our hands to show people where we're from, right? And we talk about water all the time. It's in our DNA. So in the energy arena, I think, I've already spoken a little bit about the sort of the power outages and the rates. And I think that is a big challenge for us. We need to actually really work with our two utility companies to tackle those issues. I think that the other challenge is, and you alluded to this, is, the goal is big, 100%, right? By 2040. It's really moving quickly on the build out of energy infrastructure as fast as possible. That is a big challenge right now. I think that energy efficiency updates, we know that one of the most important things that we can do to actually tackle our energy and climate crisis is to make sure that our businesses and our homes are energy efficient. And that is, one of the biggest ways to deal with greenhouse gas emissions. So that is another piece that I think is a real challenge. And we need we really need to lean into that as a state. In terms of water, I think that there are three areas that I typically think of when I think of water, and there are many more, but I think of water protections, right? I think of water affordability, and we could go into sort of the Great Lakes protections and other things. But just in the water protections piece of it, there's everything from lead remediation, which the state is doing a darn good job of. I mean, we had a horrible, horrible, right, incident that put us on the map, not because of what we were doing right, but what we were doing wrong with the Flint water crisis. And I think that woke up not only the state, but the entire country about what we need to do to remediate lead in our water infrastructure. So that is actually moving, and we're getting a lot of federal money and state money invested in lead remediation. Water contamination issues, and that includes things like PFAS contamination and toxic algal blooms and hexavalent chromium, which is the Aaron Brockovich chemical, which I never thought I'd have to really think about here in Michigan. And it was dumped into the Huron River, which is the source of the Ann Arbor's drinking water. All of these things have tremendous impacts on our water and people's ability to feel safe about what's coming out of their tap. So that's an area that we've made some good progress. I mean, there definitely steps have been taken on PFAS, both at the state and at the federal level, but there's much more to do. And people don't think about this until it's too late, but it's the protection of our groundwater. And
I remember, I just have to say, I remember looking the first time that I understood what percentage of our drinking water comes from groundwater and not from the lakes. You know, it's if you're not in the field or you don't know about it, it's kind of shocking. So thank you for bringing up groundwater. I'm anxious to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah. I mean, we live in this water wonderland where we think water is just forever, right? Yeah. I mean, we are so blessed by literally sitting at the epicenter of the largest bodies of clean water in the world. And we think it's just endless, but it's not. And what we've seen is that without adequate, tracking and measuring of what's being extracted from the groundwater by multiple users, we've seen people basically lose the water in their wells with no ability to actually dig deeper, because then you hit all sorts of heavy metals, and it's just destroyed appliances in people's homes. So I just sat down just this week with, 2 women right in the Ann Arbor Township area who literally are living without water in an area that's, fairly affluent. And, what's the source? It's a gravel mine. And it's a gravel mine that has been extracting way more, between 2 and 8 million gallons of water a day from the groundwater. And, this has happened, unfortunately, in various parts of our state. We certainly have heard a lot about the Nestle water bottling issue that has happened on the west side of the state and the tracking of all that. But it's happening, unfortunately, more often. And it's something that we really have to focus on as a state, because more and more communities are going to be impacted if we're not really proactive on this. And the last thing I absolutely must say about water is water affordability. We don't often think about this in the same kind of arena, but the number of people in communities that are at the lower ends of the economic spectrum, I mean, many of them have trouble paying their utility bills. And if they can't afford the water, I mean, think of water is life. We were told during the global pandemic that the first thing we needed to do was wash our hands. If you don't have running water and you can't afford it, that's certainly not okay. So that's another piece of things that we're working on. And there's actually a package of bills that Senator Stephanie Chang is actually working on in the legislature. We may actually see some action on that before the end of this year.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. When I was little, of course, you were in a very different place when you were very little. I know that from your background, but I was in the southwest part of the United States, and I remember for a moment there, water cost less there than it did here. And it was because, it had been kind of developed with a lot of federal money in the infrastructure. And so there was kind of a different business model, if you will, for water. So water affordability is so important, and glad that it's on your radar and that you're, I'm sure, working on plans to advocate in the right direction for that. So we've been talking about, the challenges, right? And that are also opportunities. What gives you hope? What makes you have a positive outlook when you start your day?
Yeah. Well, number one, I get to work with amazing people who are so dedicated to actually making a difference in this space. And a lot of them are young. and they're working towards a sustainable future for themselves, their generation, and the generations to come. And so they give me energy. I also know that there are a ton of very dedicated people in the business community, people that have been elected to office at all levels of government, that deeply care about these issues, and they know from their communities, speaking to the people in their communities, that they care too. And they give me hope. We are part of a polling consortium. We do a lot of polling and trying to understand the electorate and the citizens of Michigan. And one of the top two issues that comes up consistently is safe, clean drinking water. And to me, that is, it's a shame that we've gotten to a place where people are so concerned about their water. But what gives me hope is that they are recognizing it and they are going to be there to help work for solutions. Mm-hmm. And so I have two sons. They're grown. I'm glad they both live in Detroit. They're not too far from me. They in their own ways, one working in this sector and one an artist and a musician, making his own way through the ways to provide glee and joy in people's lives. All of that is important to sort of sustaining us and giving us hope for the future. Because if we give up, I can't imagine like putting my head in the sand and not doing this work. It's energizing, it's motivating, and I know that together we can make a real difference.
So well said. And if you were to ask me that question, I think one of the things that gives me hope, in addition to all the wonderful points that you made, is, we just had news recently that Michigan's, Detroit ranked second in the world in terms of having the fastest growing startup ecosystem, second in the world for its growth. And so I know that there are companies being formed every day with really talented, passionate founders and entrepreneurs behind them that are interested, as you said, next generation, very interested in these issues and knowing the importance. And so I'm hoping that we'll also have a powerful engine of innovation that will help us find solutions. And it's by working on the partnerships, the kind of partnerships that you've talked about, that will get us there. Gosh, Lisa. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Green Stream today. It's just a delight to talk with you, and we'll have to have another conversation in the future.
Well, Terry, it's been my pleasure, truly. And thank you for inviting me. It's been a great conversation, and I would make any time in my calendar available to come back and have another conversation.
Thank you for tuning in to the Sustainable Business Network Detroit, the Green Stream podcast. Remember to like, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure to follow us on SBN-Detroit.org and stay tuned for more conversations on sustainability from inside and around the city.